All right, guys, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome to the GM, man. We are in here on Tuesday morning live at 10 a.m. And I just want to thank you guys for tapping in whenever you watch it, whether you catch it in the record or you catch it live. It doesn't matter. You get it when you get it. I appreciate you guys either way. Do me a favor, man. If you're watching live, hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you've never subscribed, and do the same thing if you're catching it in the record. You are appreciated. A little bit of housekeeping as we let's see, get my mic turned around the right way. There we go. A little bit of housekeeping, man, as we are journeying towards 950 and then on to 1,000 subscribers. I told you this probably around 850 subscribers that we are in preparation for some rebranding, for a name change, for all kinds of new things here at the GM. And in all honesty, let me see if I can get this turned around just a little more. There we go. And so in all honesty, man, what we're going to be doing here is bringing you the same honest commentary, creating the same honest conversation, but we're going to be shifting our approach to how we do content. We're going to utilize this live opportunity to get instant, content to you, and then we will kind of be working to create shorter versions so that you can get the same content. Just if you don't catch it live, you don't have to watch through the whole 45 minutes to an hour to get what you need to get. And so we're going to be doing that. But the name change is really about really kind of a new approach, right? Again, same content. It just may be a new approach to how we present that content. I think that the GM was birthed, like I told you originally, from day one. The idea of the GM, the name of the GM was birthed out of that internal conversation that we all have with ourselves about our favorite team, whether it's baseball, basketball, or football, and how we can build a team and make that team better. Because it's always in the context of getting to a Super Bowl or getting to the NBA championship or getting to the World Series. And that's where the GM was birthed out of. But I think as we have lived in this YouTube space, content creation space, we want to have a name change that more represents what we're doing now. And so you guys will see that, man, as we creep over that 1,000 subscriber mark. If we get there, man, the goal is to get there by training camp, but no later than to get there by the start of the season. And so we're already in branding mode. We're already in preparation mode to make the necessary adjustments for what we're trying to get accomplished. All right. So enough talk about what's to come, and let's be about what's right now. And what's right now is a conversation about the Baltimore Ravens and do they have championship DNA? In honesty, I don't know if I changed the description. I don't know if I changed uh, the title a whole lot. I think I just may have added part two because this is really a part two conversation to yesterday's conversation. And in yesterday's conversation, man, we began discussing the Baltimore Ravens, not really in comparison to other teams, right? But really in conversation about what other teams who have been at or around the top for the last couple of decades, what they have and what they've been presenting on a regular basis to get them to a Super Bowl and then capturing some championships. You know, we gave the example of the New England Patriots and how they kind of ran the AFC East for 2 decades, basically, and then they kind of held supremacy over the AFC as a whole for that same length of time, and how they got to, I don't know if they got to 9 and won 6, if they got to 10 and won 6, I cannot remember, but I know they did win 6 Super Bowls with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And something that they were doing that kept them at the top was, you know, that mental toughness, that kind of do your job mentality. And then we talked about the Philadelphia Eagles, who have been to 3 championships with 2 different quarterbacks and capturing 2 in the last decade. We talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and how they've gone to 5 in the last 10 years, capturing 3 Super Bowls. And we also mentioned the Rams, who've been to 2 in the last 5 years, and they captured 1. And then we also referenced like a point five, right? So it's 4 teams, and the point five would be a team who got to multiple Super Bowls but maybe didn't win. And that was the San Francisco 49ers, because they had consistently been at the top of the NFC. And so we really were not comparing the Baltimore Ravens, at least this iteration of Ravens, to those teams. We were just kind of pinpointing and highlighting what those teams possessed, right? Which allowed them to capture championships and at least be in real competition for championships. And so if you want to throw the Denver Broncos in there, you could throw the Denver Broncos in there. I think if we went back 10 years, it would include their 2 times visiting the Super Bowl and capturing 1. But nevertheless, man, we are now going to really do a team comparison. And one is going to be an NFL comparison, and then one is going to be a cross sport comparison. And I think the cross sport comparison could be really amazing if you guys, you know, open up the mind and just let me kind of paint this picture. But let's start with the NFL comparison. When you consider who is talked about as championship contenders, right? It's always the same teams led by the same quarterbacks. If you're thinking AFC, it's Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. It's Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. It's Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, right? It's typically those 3 teams who are considered championship contenders most any year. And it won't be too long before CJ Stroud is included in that grouping. It'll be CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans, right? Because those are your most elite quarterbacks in the AFC. Not that they're not good players on other teams, but those guys have been in the playoffs with some level of consistency, with the exception of the Bengals. But I think that's because they're continually having to play the Ravens. Nevertheless, right? Those are your top contenders in the AFC. When you jump over to the NFC, you're looking at right now the reigning champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, who should be a contending team. You're looking at the Detroit Lions, who should be a contending team. You really don't see a contender out of the NFC South. And I guess if you had to pick a team out of the NFC, um, is that the West? you would say the LA Rams, right? And so those would be your contending teams out of those divisions. If you want to throw the Washington Commanders in there, by all means do so. And so when we jump back and do a comparison, a specific comparison of a team that kind of fits the questioning and the critique of do they have championship DNA, you would have to do a uh, comparison of the teams who appeared in the AFC divisional round. That's the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. These teams are very similar in a lot of aspects. Number one, they have franchise quarterbacks. Number two, they have MVP winning quarterbacks. Number three, they have basically what you would call long-standing head coaches. At this point, Sean McDermott up in Buffalo has been there, I think, at least 5 seasons. And then, of course, we understand how long John Harbaugh has been with the Baltimore Ravens. Okay. Buffalo and the Baltimore Ravens both want to play solid defense. They both want to get after the passer, and they both want to run the ball as an offensive identity, right? Both of these quarterbacks are dual threat. Both of these quarterbacks can get it done in the pocket and out of the pocket, right? But neither one of these quarterbacks have crossed over the AFC championship threshold with a win and advance to the Super Bowl. And so you have to question, right? Because Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have been consistently compared as recently, like I said, as the AFC championship. But neither one of them have an AFC championship victory to show for it. But why? They're really kind of constructed very, very similar. Both teams really have a similar mentality and approach to football. And I think that for the same reasons the Baltimore Ravens have not gotten over the hump are the same reasons that the Buffalo Bills have not gotten over the hump. And I think it's because they're missing some of that championship DNA, some of the things that make up DNA to get to a championship. Now, let's be clear. DNA is not what you're going to go and create. DNA is what's established in you. So the question is, when you ask, does a team have championship DNA? You're not asking what they can go get. You're asking what they already possess. And as of right now, they do not have. Neither team have championship DNA. In fact, when you look at both rosters up and down from top to bottom, there is not many players on either team who come with championship credibility. I know they brought in, that being Buffalo, they brought in Von Miller as a championship piece, a two-time champion. I think he won one with Denver, and I think he did win with the Rams. And for whatever the reason, injuries and so on and so forth, inconsistent play from the quarterback, and all other kind of reasons included, Buffalo couldn't get over the hump. The Baltimore Ravens have an edge rusher in Kyle Van Noy who has championship pedigree, but he's not like the team leader. He's not a catalyst. He's one of 53. Good player, but he's just one of 53, which means he does not make up the fabric of the Baltimore Ravens, which means his influence and his ability to provoke and promote the Ravens into a championship mentality is less than average. And so when you consider the Baltimore Ravens, right, they're just missing some pieces. And it's not that the Baltimore Ravens are not uber talented, right? Let's talk about, let's pinpoint the level of talent that we have. We have some of the best players at their current positions. Lamar Jackson is said and believed to be the best player in the NFL. You don't get higher and better than that, right? Derrick Henry is one of the top 3 running backs in the NFL. You don't get much better than that, right? Ronnie Stanley was paid like what? One of the best left tackles in the NFL. Tyler Linderbaum is believed to be the best, if not one of the top two centers in the NFL. The Baltimore Ravens have the best tight end room as a collective. Where? In the NFL. When you jump to the defensive side of the ball, right? Although we don't have a top end edge rusher, right? Good edge rushers, but not top end. We led the whole NFL in sacks. When you go to the interior linebacker position, Roquan Smith is believed to be one of the top one or two linebackers in the NFL. Kyle Hamilton is believed to be, when you consider the back end, one of the best safeties, if not the best safety in the entire NFL. And then Marlon Humphrey is considered to be one of the better slot corners in the NFL. So that's a whole lot of best. So the Baltimore Ravens are comprised of uber talented players, none of which have championship DNA. This is not a knock. This is not slander. This is not conjecture. This is not hyperbole. I know you may be wondering, well, Belanger, how does a team and or a player get championship DNA? You get championship DNA through how you respond during testing. I'm going to give you 7 elements over the course of today and tomorrow that make up what I believe is championship DNA. But first, let me do the other comparison. I'm going to tell you a team, cross sport, that the Baltimore Ravens put me in the mind of. And I know going cross sport doesn't create an exact comparison or an exact match, but I think the comparison is appropriate. The current iteration of the Baltimore Ravens put me in mind of the 2012, 2013 Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, unless I have the year incorrect, 2013 is where the Oklahoma City Thunder, an up-and-coming team full of young superstars, faced off against the Miami Heat and LeBron James, right? And they showed well, but they didn't win. Okay? They showed well, but they lost that series 4-1. They were probably overall more talented. When you look at the starting 5 versus starting 5, they were probably overall more talented, but they didn't win. You see, if you remember, if you watch, excuse me, if you watch basketball at all, and you've been watching for some time, that team was comprised, starting 5 was at the center position, it was Kendrick Perkins. It was Kevin Durant at the 4. It was Thabo Sefolosha. It was Russell Westbrook. It was a guy named Andre Roberson or Roberson. And then James Harden was coming off the bench, but he played starters minutes. So you could say the starting 5 would have been Westbrook, Harden, Roberson or Sefolosha, Durant, and Kendrick Perkins. But you also got to remember they had Ibaka as well. I think that he did step into the starting role at that time. But here's where the comparison begins. The Oklahoma City Thunder were packed full of young talent. Some of them considered to be the best at their positions or some of the best at their positions. They had athleticism. They had shooting ability. And then Durant was the young superstar who could do everything. Very similar to Lamar Jackson, the young superstar who at the quarterback position can do everything. He can run it and throw it. He's elusive. He's fast. And he's intelligent. And that Oklahoma City Thunder team was coming. Every year they were getting better. And you knew that they were coming when they faced off against Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. I believe it was in the playoff series the year before, in the previous season, and showed well. So it was no surprise that they actually made it to the finals. But what happened to that team is that after they lost the championship, they began to break up that team. James Harden was traded because of a contract difference of $4 million. I wonder would they have gone back and redone that deal? And they brought in some other pieces, Kevin Martin, and I think in that trade is how they got Steven Adams, so on and so forth. So they were still young and talented, but incomplete. The Baltimore Ravens are young and talented, but it often seems to be that something is incomplete. And the Thunder's incompletion was roster and championship DNA. The Ravens' incompletion is roster and championship DNA. You see, a team is only going to stay together for so long before the superstars begin to have a desire to go play somewhere else because they don't feel they can get it done there. The Oklahoma City Thunder always failed to get a real shooting guard, a guy who can really shoot the ball. They always failed to do that, which was the crippling point of that team. That's why it would have been important to keep a guy like a James Harden. But you move on from James Harden and you fail to complete the pieces to that puzzle. That team, that young, talented team, never got back to that pinnacle. Now they are striving for a championship now, but how many years is that? That was 2012-13. It's 2025. You're talking about 12 years. They never got close again. When you come to consider the Baltimore Ravens, right? 2023-24 season, we got close. We got to the AFC Championship, and I think we lost 17-10. But what do we say coming out of that game? We were missing some things. For a good while, this young and talented Baltimore Ravens team, what was said to have been missing was a number one level wide receiver. They grabbed Hollywood Brown in 19. They grabbed, or drafted rather, Rashad Bateman in 2021. And then they turned around and grabbed Zay Flowers in 2023. And Zay Flowers seemed to have hit the mark. So now we don't talk about wide receivers as much. We've never really had a question about tight end. And we've had a consistent conversation about the incompleteness of what? The offensive line. We've consistently had a conversation about what? The importance of getting a top end edge rusher. And then that conversation was consistently complemented by talking about, are we ready on the back end at safety and corner? And so the Baltimore Ravens have consistently tried to answer these questions through the draft. And, you know, on occasion, they have tried to address this need or these needs, these roster needs or these roster incompletions through free agency. And so as a Ravens fan and as a Ravens fan base, I think we're feeling better. I think we're feeling better about how this roster has come together. I think we feel good about Lamar Jackson. I think we feel good that the offensive line did get some attention over the last two drafts and over the last two off seasons. Well, I think we feel good about the backfield and Derrick Henry. I think we feel good about the tight end room. I think we're feeling better about the wide receiver room. I think we're feeling okay Maybe not great about the interior defensive line. I think we feel good about the linebacker room. I think we feel mostly good about safety and corner. So I think the roster incompletion or the roster complexities, I think we are feeling better about because those questions are being answered. But where's the championship DNA? I think that's the thing that the Baltimore Ravens have consistently failed to bring in is a guy, a high-end guy who knows what it's like to compete for championships. Yeah, it sounds real good and feels real good to just think that you can just get over the hump, right? And develop your own DNA. But sometimes after you've seen what you've seen, sometimes you have to add something to the mix to kind of create that fabric of DNA that's needed. You see, although the um, Oklahoma City Thunder did bring in Kendrick Perkins, who was a championship piece, he was no longer significant and or integral in his role. He wasn't. He wasn't. But unlike that team, we don't have those. We don't have that piece. We don't have that piece on the roster. That is, again, we have Calvin Noe. I will give us that, but we don't have an offensive piece. Like even when we had Nelson Aguilar, he was not integral enough in the involvement of this team and in the offense to be a catalyst that would kind of push the Baltimore Ravens to the top. That would help create a mentality and a disposition that would ready them for what they would face in the playoffs. See, part of what I'm saying is because the Baltimore Ravens have consistently lost the same way, no matter what type of seed they had, right? Whether they were on the road or at home. In 2019, right? You guys know the narrative. We gave up on some things offensively and made some mistakes, and we could point to some coaching things, and we lost after being dominant through that regular season. In 2023, had the number one overall seed, MVP, and all those kind of great accolades, right? But when we got to the AFC Championship, the narrative is that we gave up on some things, gave up on the run game, bad coaching calls, meltdown under pressure. In 2024-25 season, same kind of context. We did not have the number one seed, but we came on late, played strong, dominated the Steelers, walked into Buffalo, and for the first half, sleptwalk. And when we did come alive and start balling, it was too late. Because even when the plays needed to be made, they were there to be made. They were not made or completed, rather. And that speaks to the fabric which this team is made up. You see, am I saying they will never capture a championship? No, ma'am. No, sir. That is not what I'm saying. That is not what you've heard me say. But my question as a conversation is, do the Baltimore Ravens have the DNA? They don't have the player pieces that can kind of interweave a mentality, interweave a voice, interweave a sense of motivation, somebody that they can follow, not a team leader necessarily, but a guy who is integral enough, right? A guy who's integral enough to catapult them over that hump. Mental toughness is the first component of championship DNA. You guys heard me talk about the mental capacity last week as one of the things, or the lack thereof, that could derail the Baltimore Ravens from getting to a championship. Mental toughness is the piece that the Baltimore Ravens must possess. Unfortunately, guys and gals, is not something that they're going to develop in the offseason. It's not something they're going to develop throwing passes on the beach. It's not something they're going to develop when working out on college campuses with wide receivers or doing pass rush drills or working out with pass rush specialist or technique specialist. It's not. That doesn't develop mental toughness. That develops skill and chemistry. Mental toughness is developed under pressure. And we've seen this team falter under pressure. So do they have mental toughness? I think you can see the increase and development of some players in that area of mental toughness. See, capacity deals with two different things: mental intelligence and then toughness. And so, not to challenge anybody's intelligence, but I think that we're seeing Lamar Jackson develop that mental toughness, because you can see the intelligence raising as well. You see, early on in his career, 18, 19, 20, maybe even a little bit of 21, teams approached him as if you could defend him just one way. And that was if you went zero coverage or you heavy blitzed him, you could get Lamar Jackson off track. Right? Let's just talk truth. That's what was said. And when I came out in one of my first videos and talked about Lamar Jackson needed to develop a sense of pocket awareness and ability to read the defense more quickly, that's just mental intelligence when it comes to having the capacity. And you've seen him be able to do that. Teams can no longer just blitz him or zero coverage him and defeat him. But now what we need to see is that mental toughness, at least that level of mental toughness, be raised so that there is no cracking under pressure. And I think that we've seen him increase that toughness and improve in that department over the last two playoffs. So my confidence in Lamar Jackson and this offense is elevating because we've actually seen him elevate. Case in point, and we're going to do kind of a review of some plays specifically that would address these elements of DNA, these elements of championship DNA. But when we saw him have a difficult first half, he still made some plays, still threw some touchdowns, all those kind of things, right? After the half, Lamar Jackson was clearly the best player on the field at any time in that second half, after having two turnovers in that first half. What you saw was his mental toughness elevate. You saw him be able to go to half, catch his breath, get his mind together, and come out and handle his business. Put the ball where it was supposed to go, through timely touchdowns, escape the pocket when necessary, zero turnovers, a top-notch passer rating, and he led his team down on two scoring drives to put them in position to win. That says mental toughness. That's what gives me a higher level of confidence that he has been improving in pressure moments. I think a guy that rides with him, that has been developing that mental toughness, is Isaiah Likely. You see, Isaiah Likely's intelligence has always been apparent because you can see him sit down in open windows and make himself available for Lamar Jackson. Early on in his career, when he was just doing spot duty for Mark Andrews, you still could see him developing chemistry quickly just by being a guy who could have the intelligence to just get into those open spots and make the catch. Has he made mistakes? Yes, he's not perfect. But you absolutely have seen his level of intelligence on display. But in the same game that I'm referencing, where Lamar Jackson elevated himself in the second half of the Buffalo game, AFC divisional round, You saw Isaiah Likely be on the other end of that touchdown pass to put the game within 2 points. Without mental toughness, you trip, you fall down, you stumble, you let the ball slip through your hands. Easy excuse could be that it was wet, your hands were cold, or whatever. But he made the catch and put the Baltimore Ravens in position to tie the game. So I certainly think Lamar Jackson and Isaiah Likely are in position to do some things together that make the Baltimore Ravens great. But now, beyond those two dudes offensively, I can't really identify anybody else right now. I can't say Derrick Henry. I can't say Derrick Henry has never been in a winning situation. Not that he has not won, not that he has not been on playoff teams, but he's never visited a Super Bowl, as great as he's been. And he's never powered his team to victory in an AFC championship. So I can't say he has DNA of a champion. Do I trust him? Yes. But until we put it all together, I can only go with what I saw from Lamar Jackson and Isaiah Likely last season. There's other guys on this offense that you have questions about. In the biggest moments, you've seen them falter. Zay Flowers, good player, but I don't know what he's going to be in the playoffs. Mark Andrews, good player, but we've seen what he is in the playoffs, right? And so Isaiah Likely and Lamar Jackson. But will that be enough to power this team? Would that be enough to begin to weave together DNA fabric to pull the whole offense together to be championship level? See, it's so easy. Please hear me. It's so easy to say, oh, they're championship level offense. They're not. They ain't never won nothing. See what we're talking about when we talk about what we see from the offense and 35 points a game and all those kind of things. We're talking about potential. But just like the Oklahoma City Thunder had a lot of potential, but never won nothing as a collective. Lamar Jackson and Isaiah Likely showed me a lot of potential. They showed me the mental toughness, right? And I've been watching Lamar Jackson develop this thing over the last couple of seasons. So I'm super excited to see what he can do this season when the schedule is stacked against the Ravens. We go to the defense side of the ball. There's not a single person on that defense that I trust. I have not seen this defense make a play in two playoff series that changed life for the Ravens. I have not seen one player make a play. Did players make plays? Yes. But have any single player made a play? Kyle Hamilton, as great as he is, I ain't seen a play yet. Odafe Owe, Calvin Noy, Metabike, all these guys you expect big things out of. I don't see the play yet. And in all truth, we had 23-24. We had the Texans game and the Chiefs game. And then 24-25, we had the Pittsburgh game and the Buffalo game. So we have 4 games. I'm not looking all the way back to 19 and all those kind of things. I'm looking current. And there's not a single guy who you can say is like that as it pertains to making life-changing plays, game-changing plays for the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of potential. Like I mentioned earlier on in this conversation, we have some of the best pieces at their positions. But potential that does not seize opportunity does not equal championship. And so in this examination, right, when we have this Baltimore Ravens team on the x-ray table and we're examining them, what we can't really see is championship DNA. And I think that's what's wrong with the Buffalo Bills. I think that is what's wrong with the Cincinnati Bengals. Right now, that's what's wrong with the Houston Texans. So until you actually get over in there, into those heated moments, and you perform under pressure, there's no evidence of it. See, a lot of times, I'm going to give you a perfect example. A lot of people were critical of the Kansas City Chiefs last season. They're no good. They're having a down season. They're frauds. They're paper champions, all those kind of things, right? Because they were winning in kind of odd ways. A blocked field goal and a missed field goal and a fumble late in the game and all of these kind of small margin victories. But you know why they could pull those games out? Because they're battle tested. Agreed. They got their heads busted in the Super Bowl. But what is that statement? They got their heads busted where? In the Super Bowl. A place they've been 5 times over the last 7 seasons. I think, is it 6 or 7 straight AFC championships? That's why teams give them the nod when it comes to top end contenders. Because just like Tom Brady had developed that credibility as a player, therefore the Patriots had developed that credibility as a team to being a real contender. All they need is a chance. The Chiefs have developed that same type of credibility. See, you can put them on the X-ray table, whether they win a Super Bowl or not, and you can still see the DNA. And so all I'm asking you guys for is a real examination. Again, this is no criticism of the Ravens. This is an examination. So mental toughness is the first aspect. Work ethic. Do the Baltimore Ravens have the work mentality to win the chip? See, the easy answer is to say, yeah. Yeah, the Ravens have the work ethic. Absolutely. You see, for some players, work ethic is apparent. Again, you can see the incline of Lamar Jackson's career. You can see the incline of Isaiah Likely's career. You can see the incline or sustainability of Derrick Henry's career. Right? But then there are still some pieces who play important roles on the Ravens who you can't always tell if they're working hard. Right? Let me give you an example. Ben Cleveland, who the Baltimore Ravens brought back. He's important only because we need depth at the interior offensive line position. Many people lobbied for Ben Cleveland to take over for Daniel Falele. He couldn't. Well, no matter what was going on with him off the field, it had to be work ethic that could not get him where? On the field. He had to fall in John Harbaugh's doghouse for some type of reason. And so obviously, he did not outwork Daniel Falele. Now, he may not be as important because they may add some pieces to the Baltimore Ravens offensive line puzzle, and he's moved on from, right? But when you look at another position, let's say left guard. Now, Voorhees is a guy we're dependent on. He's an important piece to this offensive line. He's a guy who was seemingly given the job last season, even before he had earned the job. right? He started the season as a starter. Yes, he did go down with an injury, right? But NFL rule, non-written, is that you cannot lose your job to an injury, which was the whole controversy around when Tom Brady took over for Drew Bledsoe. Nevertheless, he could not beat out Patrick McCarry. Yes, Patrick McCarry did go on and get a nice contract from the Jacksonville Jaguars. No matter what you thought about him, no matter whether you thought they overpaid for him or whatever. But Voorhees seemingly, this is an assumption, could not outwork and prove himself enough to get his starting position back. But let's not stop there. Those guys are just two kind of one of 53 players. But let's talk about the starting defensive end, Broderick Washington, who got his money several seasons ago and seemingly put on an invisible suit. After Broderick Washington got his new contract, for some reason, it is hard to find him on Sundays. I'm not saying he's not playing, because he obviously is. I'm simply saying a lot of times it is hard to know that he was even on the field. It just doesn't seem like he's working hard enough. Now, he's been grouped in with a solid interior defensive line, but is that because Travis Jones and Meta BK and Michael Pierce was pulling the weight? Or was Broderick Washington really doing something? I don't know. And in honest truth, I don't care. I just know from a game-to-game basis, it does not seem like he's on the field. But let's not start with Broderick Washington when it comes to work ethic. A guy that we have been waiting on since he was drafted is edge rusher David Ojabo. Understood. His first season, he was injured. And his second season, he was, I guess, still recovering. But his third season, where he was fully healthy, he had an off season to train versus rehab. Did he play last year? Because I'm not sure. No, he's on the roster. But out of 17 games, some of which he was sidelined because of ineffectiveness, therefore he was inactive. I wonder, was that a work ethic issue? I don't know. And I'm not casting any aspersions on him. I'm just simply saying a dude that was thought that highly of that they would give a second round pick for a guy who was coming off of and currently rehabbing an Achilles injury has not shown up. And this is into his third season and now going into his fourth season. I wonder, is it a work ethic issue? I just wonder. For guys who are habitually injured, Jalen Armour-Davis, I wonder, is he working hard enough on his body? Is he training? Is he stretching? Is he eating right? I don't know. I'm just wondering. Just a thought when it comes to work ethic. And even Marlon Humphrey prior to this past season, Marlon Humphrey out of his own mouth said he had been coming in a little heavier than what he needed to. Once he got his body right, what did his last season look like? Looked pretty good, right? Sound like work ethic to me. Again, I'm not saying they lack work ethic, but I wonder, are they putting in enough work ethic? Understanding that I know injuries are part of this game. But how are you getting injured and you ain't never playing? That's the question. How you always injured in practice? Non-contact stuff. Just asking. So work ethic is the number 2 element. And lastly for today, the next element is team first focus. A team first focus. with understanding every single team has, the old school term was prima donna. The newer school term is diva. And every team has a little bit of diva in them, whether it's the wide receiver, whether it's a cornerback, whether it's the edge rusher. Every team has a little bit of diva. And the diva in a football player typically is a me first mentality. My stats, my shine, my commercials, my endorsements, my new contract. And if we're going to win the Super Bowl this season, it's going to take 53 of 53 and then 10 of 10 on the practice squad coming together with one mission in mind. And the reason why it's going to take every person on the Ravens regular season roster, all 53 and all 10, is because there will be injuries throughout a regular season. And you're going to need the number 23 guy, the number 24 guy, so on and so forth, to be ready. Well, if you ain't ready, you're letting the team down, right? If you just believe you're not even going to get playing time, you're just going to show up and get that check, and you're not ready to go in case injury happens, that's not a team first focus. When you look at the practice squad, there's going to be some times, man, where you have to get called up because somebody ahead of you wasn't ready because of injury, sickness, illness, things of that nature. You're going to have to be ready. You're going to have to put all hands in the pile and say, I'm in. Last season, it seems like we had a little bit of me focus. We had some contention at the free safety position, whether it was Marcus Williams, whether it was Eddie Jackson, whether it was both. And it caused us a lot of trouble for the first 11 games. It wasn't until the me guys were benched or released and a team dude in Adarius Washington was implemented where things on that back end got better. You see, it's going to take a team first focus. See, when you look at all of the championship teams, right? All the ones I mentioned, all the ones I talked about on Monday, all the ones I mentioned at the beginning of this video or this recording, all of them have had some issues, right? You guys remember the controversy between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, right? They got it together, put their hands in a pile, and kept grinding. You guys remember the controversy between Jalen Hurts and the head coach. Everybody put their hand in the pile, and they went out and won. And so sometimes it takes being quiet, turning your attention towards the collective, and being about your business. If you ball, money will come. Right? Think about it. If you ball, money will come. If you produce, money will come. But if you are a knucklehead and a me first type of guy, those teams don't typically win. Think about what I'm finna point to a few dudes, right? When Antonio Brown was one of the best wide receivers in the league and he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, did they ever win anything? No, they didn't. And they eventually moved on from him. When Deontay Johnson was with the Pittsburgh Steelers and he was always, kind of causing some controversy, he was a me first guy. And they didn't win with him, and they eventually moved on from him. Chase Claypool was a me guy. And now it's a theme happening here from Pittsburgh, but he was a me guy. And what did they do? They moved on from him. And the last two guys I mentioned, actually all three, Brown, who's older, Claypool, and Deontay Johnson are all sitting at the house right now. Right? Because you don't win with me guys. You can't win with divas. Yes. they went down, Antonio Brown, that is, he went down to Tampa and won. But that was because you had the ultimate catalyst in Tom Brady, who could get most of the guys on the same page and win a one championship. But me, guys, you really don't win with. Think about it. Stephon Diggs, Buffalo, 3 years of 1,300 receiving yards. Did they ever win anything? No, because what you kept hearing is me. And they eventually moved on from him and went further without him than with him. And so those are the three things I'm going to highlight today: mental toughness, work ethic, and a team first focus. That creates championship DNA. But I'm hit you guys in the morning with more. I'm going to give you the last 7 elements. And then on Thursday, I'm going to give you some examples of these elements that have the potential to surface and shine in 2025. Listen, man, I appreciate you guys. If you hear this long, please hit the subscribe. Please hit the like. I appreciate you guys for hanging with me. And if I have the time, I will produce that short version and put it in the video section. Man, I appreciate you guys. Much love.